lives. From social distancing and frequent hand washing to closures of our schools and public facilities. This is a dynamic situation that is evolving quickly and changing as we go. I'm so pleased today that we're going to be addressing the coronavirus and its impact on our Alaska schools and our teachers and families. We have invited I'm pleased also to see Representative Drummond join us and Representative Tuck at 8:05. So today we will have 4 presenters. First, we will get to hear from Commissioner Michael Johnson with the Alaska Department of Education and Early Development. As a member of the Cabinet, he has access to the Capitol building and has chosen to be with us personally today. At approximately 9 a.m., we will transition to 3 speakers who will address their local experiences as they deal with the many implications of school closure and student and staff safety. The 3 presenters reflect a cross-section of Alaska's diverse school districts. We will hear from Superintendent Dina Bishop of the Anchorage School District, who represents the largest district in the state, Superintendent Daniel Walker of the Lower Kuskokwim School District based in Bethel, an REAA in rural Alaska, and Superintendent Bridget Weiss of the Juneau School District, who leads the capital city's medium-sized borough district. To respect these school leaders' time limits, we have scheduled each presenter so they can call in at a scheduled time. So we have allotted about 20 minutes for each of them for questions and answers. So I'm going to try and keep on track with the timeline, and I know Superintendent Bishop is planning to call in at 9 o'clock. So with that, let's begin. And I'd like to invite Commissioner Johnson to come forward. We really appreciate you taking the time to address the committee today. Please put your name and affiliation on the record and begin.
For the record, my name is Michael Johnson, and I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Education and Early Development. And thank you, Chair Story, and members of the committee for the opportunity to be here this morning and share with you the work we've been doing around this health emergency and responding to it as a statewide school system. As you noted, the situation changes rapidly, and we're responding to unprecedented circumstances. So forgive me if I take a little bit of extra time this morning to read my notes. They've been changing up until walking in the building this morning, and as I'm sure you know, they'll be changing even while we're here. But I hope to share with you some of the work that's happening in the department and even around the state with our school districts. So I hope to give you just a brief introduction and then go over some major education announcements that we've made and that we're working on, communications related to this situation, hot topics. I want to give a message to our students and then take some questions. As I noted, this is a response to a health emergency. This was a statement I made in a letter that I sent to the public school families just recently, and that is that the only expectation of public education that eclipses our responsibility to provide an excellent education for every student every day is to take all the necessary steps to ensure the health and safety of every student every single day. When parents send their kids to school, they want to know that we're going to send them home safely. And so this is a health emergency, and priority in everyone's mind, myself, the governor, each of you, moms and dads across the state, is that we do everything we can to keep kids safe. But as we've seen across the country, the decisions that we're making right now all have consequences. There are no easy decisions in a situation like this. And so the priority remains, even when those decisions are hard, to keep students and our staff safe. I just want to, right at the outset, though, say a few words of thanks. My staff at the Department of Education has been absolutely incredible. They're there late, they're there early, they're connecting with school districts, they're completely shifting the work of the department so that we can be what our superintendents and teachers and students need us to be in this time. As with everybody else, our reality a month and a half ago is completely different than our reality today. And so I just want to give a shout out to the Department of Education and all the staff there that support me and the students. They've really accepted this challenge and put in double, triple time to make good things happen. There are so many leaders around our state that are exemplifying what leadership looks like in a crisis. And rather than thinking of the things they can't do, they're thinking of the things they can do. Monica Goyette in Matsu is one of those leaders. I was speaking to her recently, and she said, Michael, we're using this as an opportunity to expand services. And so they're cooperating with the city and borough. Their nurses are helping the borough in their area. Another example is they have a shop teacher that during this time of transition is working with their maintenance staff on deferred maintenance projects. So I just appreciate the leaders that aren't focusing on what can't be done, but they're finding ways to do what they've always done and do new things, and I appreciate that. Our cooks, our bus drivers, when you look at what's happening around our state, folks are doing amazing work. 3 weeks ago, they were serving lunches like we've always served lunches. And today, many of them are serving lunches in new ways and reaching even more families with those services. Bus drivers are a part of that. Nurses are on some buses going around as they deliver food or come to pick up food in certain places. And then I think this is a great time to, if you've never stopped and thanked a custodian or somebody that's cleaning, this would be a great time to do that. And I'm not sure America has yet realized the debt that we owe to those people around our country right now, whether that's in our airports, in our Capitol building, in our offices, in our schools certainly. But these people have been doing amazing work to keep us safe. And never have we thought of the work they do in terms of our safety. But I hope that everybody will take time to thank one of those folks, because they really do make a huge difference in our response to this crisis. So I want to thank them. We've made some major education announcements, and when I say we, I mean the Governor, Unified Command, the Department of Education. We last week, the first health mandate was March 20th, and we announced that all scheduled public schools would have non-student contact days March 26th through 27th. Of course, many districts had spring break during that time, but we made a statewide unprecedented closure of school and made those non-contact days. During this time, we have been encouraging districts to dedicate in-service days to fully organizing and planning for remote delivered schooling. And then all residential programs are working to have their students home by March 27th. That was another mandate, and I think we're almost there. Mount Edgecombe being the largest of those programs, 400 students, and I got a text just as I was walking into this room this morning that they have almost all their students home.
Excuse me, Commissioner, Representative Zilkowski has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, on the previous slide, I just want to make sure that I understand. So it is a health mandate that all public K-12 schools are closed for non-student days through the end of March. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Follow-up? What types of considerations were made for schools in communities where schools offer access to running water to help with hygiene and different types of considerations in remote communities that don't have clean running water in every home?
Through the chair, Representative Zilkowski. There's those situations, and there's situations like a community that had to use just recently their school as an emergency shelter. And so each community's responding to this in different ways. For example, having scheduled times for folks to come to the school as families, not as groups, to get supplies, to get water, to access the services that they need. We've had a situation where there were some frozen pipes, and so we communicated with other agencies to make sure that that was responded to as quickly as possible. But I can't give you one blanket answer that's the same in every community. We're just trying to work with each community to provide for the needs that are there.
Phyllis? So despite the closures, there have been efforts at the department level to make sure that there are flexibilities to access schools for watering points if that's needed.
Through the chair, Representative Zolkowski, not just at department level, but agencies working together to make sure that's possible.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson, would you like us to hold our questions, or would you like them to be asked as it comes along?
Chair Story, I think I'll, it's up to the, if there's a question, I don't mind a question, but I may answer several of them as we go through. So maybe we can move through the slides and go from there.
Thank you.
Okay. Communication, as you know, is super important during this time. I have regular conference calls with the Department of Health and Social Services Unified Command. Those often include the governor. We have our own internal emergency response team that has been meeting since early February. In-state, I thank the Alaska Superintendents Association for sponsoring a daily call with superintendents, and that's been very helpful to both the department and the superintendents to make sure we're regularly communicating. I give them updates. They ask questions about issues such as the one Representative Zolkowski asked about particular situations in their communities. I have had a steady stream of phone calls and text and emails with superintendents, teachers, association leaders around the state. We're very active on social media. We have other online resources going, webinars, videos, and that's growing daily, and I'll talk more about those in some of our other slides. And then nationally, the Council for Chief State School Officers, or all the state chiefs, we are having at least twice weekly conference calls, and then some of those are with the U.S. Department of Education, and later this morning I have a conference call with other state education chiefs and the U.S. Department of Education on issues related to that. In addition to that, I just want to note that districts are doing amazing communication too on social media, YouTube videos. There are principals and teachers making videos and connecting with students in all sorts of ways. I have not had much time to watch TV, but I cannot resist the temptation to watch The Den, which is South Anchorage High School's, if you know teacher there, Lee Butterfield. If you get a chance, go to YouTube, but just be forewarned, when you watch one, you'll want to watch all of those videos that he's making. And the principal there often is on there answering questions from students, and it's just really neat to see that even in this crisis, new ways of communication are happening, and really good ones. So I hope lots of people will tune into Mr. Butterfield's YouTube videos. Health and safety information resources. So back on February 5th, so over a month ago now, almost a month and a half ago, Todd Brocious and the health and safety team anticipated that this situation would escalate and put a website up on the department's. If you go to our homepage, you can link to it right there with information to districts. On February 6th, the very next day, we sent our first letter to superintendents about the coronavirus and how the department could support that. So we've had that up for a while. They update it regularly. It has links to other resources from around the country. And so that's a resource that we've been providing for quite some time, and I appreciate Todd and his team for their forward thinking on that. In terms of student learning, we have launched just this week a website, www.aklearns.org. And if you go there, that site grows by the hour. I want to thank CERC and their willingness to partner to keep that website going and continually updated. We update it at least daily. It's a clearinghouse of resources. Educators from across the state are sharing resources that we can put on there. It's online. There's online learning events there for educators where they can learn how to deliver education in new ways. Yesterday afternoon, I had the privilege of signing on to an ECHO project, which I'll explain in just a minute. There are over 300 teachers on learning how to deliver education across the state. So we've had food nutrition webinars, we've had special education webinars, and so it's kind of a go-to site for the delivery of services to students. There's other sites popping up from associations, ACSA and others that are addressing some of these needs also.
Madam Chair, just a quick question.
Representative Drummond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. Is this website available to families and students in addition to teachers?
Mm-hmm.
So this is publicly available. Fabulous. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Through the Chair, Representative Drummond, I'm going to show some examples of just that. We're also exploring and working on opportunities to stand up fully online learning options for students through the department to make sure that students have access to courses through the summer if they want to do that, and we'll have more information about that soon. The homepage starts with planning because that's the period of time we're in, is assisting teachers with preparing. Again, districts across the state have been doing amazing work. I know that you'll hear from some of the districts later today about the number of phone calls that have been made, the needs assessments that have been happening, the training that they've been giving to teachers. And so some very forward-thinking superintendents have been doing a lot of work with their staffs and teachers. Teachers have been doing a lot of work with students this week, curbside pickups. And for example, the Matsu district, Monica told me this morning, will be fully transitioned to online learning by next week for their students based on the needs assessments that they're doing. And all these superintendents are sharing their resources with each other so that it's not about just kids in their district, but they're offering this to districts across the state. As Representative Drummond noted, this website also is full of resources for families. So there's a page for family resources like daily schedules, lesson plans, links to other opportunities that families can do at home during this time. There's grade by grade level remote learning resources on the website, so you can go and click on links associated with the grade that your child may be in or your student. And then there's lots of distant learning tools, and if you've followed the news, you've noticed that lots of curriculum providers around the country have been offering their material for free to families, and so we're linking those on the website too. Some of them are amazing. If you find yourself at home and looking for something interesting to do, go to Discovery Ed, go to some of these other links, and you can spend hours and hours there with all kinds of learning opportunities for your students. A partnership that the department has had with the university, the Anchorage School District is our prime partner in this. ACSA is the ECHO project. It's the Alaska Education Network, and this has been up and running for over a year, providing professional development opportunities for teachers. If you see the picture there, those are folks that are signed on to Alaska Learning Opportunities. Yesterday we had over 300 teachers on at one time learning how to use Zoom, for example. There's a full menu of opportunities, and all of these are recorded so they can be accessed after the fact by teachers. So the number continues to grow. Yesterday morning there was like 125 on, and in the afternoon there was over 300. And then today there'll be more teachers accessing this opportunities online. And so I want to thank our partners that are sponsoring the ECHO project. It's a great opportunity for teachers to get the skills they need to function in this new environment.
Representative Drummond.
I think a shout out is also due to the internet service providers that are helping this. I announced on the House floor last night what GCI and ACS have offered to communities, and I'm really excited about that. And I hope that that one of either you or one of your speakers today will talk a little bit about that and how they're partnering with schools and students and families to make sure that kids have online access in every community and in every home.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair Drummond. The telecom industry in Alaska has been here from the beginning. So right as we realized the situation was escalating, they've been here and ready to figure out what they can do to support student learning. And so GCI, ACS, some of the smaller co-ops around the state have really stepped in and filled in the gap. I had a conversation with Ron Duncan, the CEO of GCI, and he could not have been more cooperative and generous, and that's true of all the telecoms, every single one of them. I have not had any of them that have not been willing to be generous and support in this. So as I left the office this morning, the superintendents were online learning more about the opportunity to fill in the gap of internet service across the state. And so I'll need to go back and fill in some of those details myself. But what I know is that the internet providers in this state are coming alongside students to make sure they have the access they need in very creative ways, from low tech to high tech. So from phone service all the way up to broadband internet service. Another area that's very, very important is student nutrition. Our Joe Dawson, that leads our student nutrition team, was another one in the department that saw into the future a little bit and applied for a waiver before we had any cases of the COVID virus in our state, and got that waiver as of yesterday afternoon. So these numbers are probably old because it's been growing by the hour. Joe and her team have worked with 32 districts to submit waivers that are necessary. So the food service program's operated through the United States Department of Agriculture. It's not an education program. But she's worked with them for those waivers. 23 districts have approved. I'm sure that's higher by now. Over 213 sites where food can be distributed. 1 Head Start program, 5 after-school programs, and that'll be growing by the day as we make sure that these programs are not going to fall by the wayside and that students have access to food. This is where just a shout out to bus drivers and to the cooks, and they have just been absolutely tireless to make this work for kids and families. These are called non-congregate food service programs, meaning that students can go to the school and pick them up at different times, not necessarily in groups, or we have school buses delivering meals to students where that is needed. Huge shout out to St. Mary's School District and Dave Herbert, the superintendent up there. They have incorporated food service with their instructional delivery. Internet service is limited there until they fill in some of those gaps. What they're doing is teachers are preparing packets for their students. When the students come to get meals or when they're delivered, that packet of learning material is delivered to the student. The next day when they go and deliver the meals, they pick up the students' work and hand them another packet. And so combining all these resources to make sure that learning doesn't stop and that healthy students have access to meals. So a shout out to all the staff out at St. Mary's for being creative with a low-tech option to make sure the kids are still learning. And that's an example of what I noted before, not a superintendent that's thinking about what can't be done, but thinking about what can be done. supporting students with special needs. So that's a big question, is how do we make sure that we're not leaving these students behind during this transition? DEED's SPED team, led by Don Enoch, has been working around the clock, along with SPED folks in districts around the state. The team held a statewide webinar this week to prepare districts to meet the special education needs of students under these circumstances. Also, a big shout out to the Special Education Service Agency. They've developed a service plan for teleservices and supports the districts, and they continue to serve especially low incident disability students in our state, high need students. So Patrick and his team over there just really appreciate how they've stepped up to make that happen. Also, CERC has been working with the department to assess needs around the students with disabilities and do a needs assessment of what's out there. So we'll continue that work to make sure those students receive their services.
Madam Chair.
Representative Drummond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, could you remind us what CERC is? What does the mnemonic mean, and what is that agency's function?
Yeah. Thank you, through the chair, Representative Drummond. CERC is the Southeast Regional Resource Center, led by Cheryl Weinberg. It's been around the state for decades, works with not just districts in Southeast, but around the state, providing a variety of services from support to maintenance to special education to adult learning. They contract with districts to, especially smaller districts, to provide services, but even big districts. Their office is located here in Juneau. They also recently received what is called the Comprehensive Center Grant, which is a grant from the federal government in partnership with a few other states to support the department's work. And so, for example, they're helping to support the student learning website that we're putting up.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you.
Residential program students, as we know, there's several programs around the state. These programs have been focused on following the guidance of health officials in the state of getting students home to their home communities. But they've also been working with other local districts to make sure that they continue to get educational services. Students take their laptops home. I know at Mount Edgecombe, from the guidance of health officials, these students are now mostly back in their home communities, but they won't be able to travel back to school because travel back and forth, especially if we begin to have community transmission, just would not be safe. They're safe in their home communities, but they're going to miss some opportunities. So on one of the last days of school over at Mount Edgecombe, students were wearing their prom dresses to school that day to make sure they get that opportunity. So great work by Janelle Vanas and her staff over there, but also the Nunana program, Gila out in Galena, Northwest Arctic, programs around the state, Chugach, making sure these kids are safe and back with their home families, because that's and that started even before the mandate, because families wanted their students back home. Statewide assessments, huge question.
Excuse me, Commissioner. Representative Sulkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question on the previous slide, Commissioner. Do you know how many students traveled home to how many communities from Mount Edgecombe, and what work was done at, understanding that the state is the school district for this particular school, what work was done to protect transmission from students who were traveling to remote communities that could be significantly impacted by transmission?
Through the chair, Representative Sulkowski, those schools worked under the guidance of health officials, so the Department of Health and Social Services. Students, before they left, were given guidance about washing your hands, social distancing, those sorts of things. And then the schools were in close contact with families as those students were being transported. For example, Mount Edgecombe, having a large number of students, rather than leave the students in the airport during layovers, hotel rooms were reserved, vans were rented to transport, chaperones were put in place to make sure the students were in the airport for the least amount of time possible.
Follow-up.
And then just on that, on the first part of my question, how many students in particular from Mount Edgecombe were traveling home through the course of this time period?
Through the chair, Representative Solkowski, Mount Edgecombe has about 400 students. I don't have the exact number on each day, but they've been working to get students on flights each day through the week, and we can get you information on those numbers.
Thank you. Thank you. Please proceed. Excuse me, Representative Hopkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. What is, as these students are traveling home to places that might not have as good of internet access or as a regular school that they're involved with, what are these different residential schools doing to continue the education for their students, and what will the assessments and assumptions with their transcripts at the end of the year look like?
Through the chair, Representative Hopkins, I should have said at the beginning of this, and I'm going to try to answer your question, but one thing that I've been saying to superintendents is, in a time of uncertainty, folks want to have certainty about all these questions, and I don't know that we can have that. We're having to answer the questions as they come in the priority each day. The students in these programs, each program has been working on so it looks different for each program. For example, the students in the Nenana program, those students are utilizing CyberLinks, which is the Nenana School District's correspondence program, so they have experience in distant delivery to students around the state, so they're utilizing that resource to support their residential program students that went home. Mount Edgecombe is sending computers home with students. They're also connecting with other local school districts there. I've heard of school districts that are finding ways to make sure kids can access internet even when they're not in the school building, whether that's driving up outside, and there's some FCC rules that are being worked through in that regard. And then, like Representative Drummond said, some of the telecom providers are, and this gets more technical than I need to here, but so in their needs assessment, almost all students, especially in high school, have access to cell phones, and those cell phones can become hotspots and to access internet. So there's technical work being done around that to make sure as many students as possible have access to internet. In terms of transcripts, we're still working through all those issues. I'll speak to that a little bit coming up, but those are some of the decisions and solutions that we're going to have to come up going forward.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
So one of the issues that was referenced was state assessments, and that's a big question on everybody's mind. Several days ago, the governor directed me to seek waivers from the federal government on assessments and other federal requirements, specifically so that teachers have time to reorient how they're delivering instruction services to our students, especially when traditional delivery models are not available. So he's directed me to do that. That's conversations we're having with the Department of Education as a group, CCSSO, all the state chiefs, to find out if the federal government will issue some kind of blanket waiver for assessments. And so we'll have more information about statewide assessments coming very soon. But obviously the governor's intent is that I seek waivers from those assessments for this school year. High school seniors, I want to speak specifically to them because I know this is especially a stressful situation for them as they're transitioning from high school to college or career. One big issue for our high school students is the Alaska Performance Scholarship. So we have been diligently looking. Want to thank Stephanie Butler over at the ACPE, Alaska Commission on Post-Secondary Education, working on what authority do we have to waive the requirement for the SAT and ACT on the performance scholarship. And so with the governor's approval and support, I'm going to be waiving the requirement for ACT and SAT for the performance scholarship. Still lots of details to work out downstream from that decision, but we wanted to announce that to you today in committee so that seniors would know that we're doing everything we can because we don't want them to feel that the current situation is jeopardizing their opportunity to access that scholarship. And then with other transcript and graduation requirement issues, we're working through those as well for our high school seniors.
Representative Hopkins.
Thank you, Commissioner. I know you're swamped with trying to figure out all these different answers. Do you have any sort of timeline for when you might know what that answer is going to look like, or if they're going to be waived from taking finals classes, trying to make up these 2 weeks plus of the assumption that the closure might continue? What is the time frame for you to come out with that transcript decision?
Through the chair, Representative Hopkins, as soon as possible, but that's all I can say. Stephanie Butler and her team are working feverishly on this, along with folks at the department and the Department of Law, to make sure what we can do. One of our goals is, in a time of such significant uncertainty, if we can provide certainty about these sorts of things the sooner, as soon as we can, then we add just one measure of I guess, predictableness, if that's a word, for students. So we're working on it as fast as we can.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Representative Drummond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, I hope they're working hard and not necessarily feverishly.
Representative Drummond, thank you for the clarification, and I can assure you that, as far as I know, nobody has a fever over at ACPE.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Words are important.
Yes.
Okay, where was I?
Waivers to SATs and ACTs.
Yeah. So educators are also someone that's on our mind a lot and supporting them. And so think about if you were student teaching to get your teaching certificate right now and how stressful this situation could be for you. Under 1420.020, and some regulations, I have the authority to issue emergency certificates and waive requirements for renewal of certification. So using this authority, I will be issuing emergency certificates to any student teachers who were unable to complete their student teaching experience and extending certificates that would expire. I will be authorizing emergency certification for individuals who were unable to satisfy testing and coursework requirements. We're working with that. We'll get that information out to teachers. But if a student was in the middle of a student was in the middle of student teaching, we will be issuing emergency certificates for those. If a teacher's certificate was expiring, we want them to focus on delivering instruction, and so we'll be working with them to make sure that nobody's certificate expires.
Representative Hopkins.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's an excellent decision, and I really appreciate that direction. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we probably all agree with that. Thank you very much for taking care of that as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I'll just turn around and thank the teachers in the state that are working really diligently, long hours, to make this an opportunity and not miss the opportunity to teach kids. So I appreciate that. I think I covered everything on that slide. School calendar waivers, as you know, we are currently reviewing all the waiver options that we have before us and what authority I have. I have conversations with Unified Command on a regular basis, and I just want to say thank you to Commissioner Adam Crum, Dr. Ann Zink, Governor Dunleavy. They have never been too busy to talk to me as we're working through these issues, and I can only imagine the load that they're under, and yet they have been super responsive as we've been making these decisions. I'll be having conversations with them today and throughout the weekend regarding if the current pause and non-contact days will continue after the end of the month, and so I will be announcing something no later than Monday on that. In terms of the waiver for days, what we're trying to do is to make that as easy as possible for districts. So we're working on in normal circumstances, if a school district has to have a school closure, they have to go through a process and write a letter and request waiving those days. We're trying to streamline that by preparing that letter for everybody so that individual districts aren't having to do that and can focus on this transitioning to how they're going to deliver instruction.
Representative Tuck.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for your leadership in making sure that we're coordinating efforts and making sure that student needs are being met as well as our community needs. I know it's got to be a huge task, and it's probably changed, as you said, changes moment by moment. So you got to be on your toes. When we look at this last spring break, I imagine there's probably a lot of educators that have been traveling, and I imagine there's probably been some meetings that they've had to attend also. What are districts doing to making sure that they're doing their part with their educators of making sure that we're doing what we can for this COVID-19 not spreading?
Through the chair, Representative Tuck. It's different across the state. So in some districts, like the Ingrid School District, teachers are working from home and providing services from there. And again, just a shout out and a thank you to them because they're doing that in some pretty creative ways. Others are actually going to the school but practicing social distancing, going to their own classroom. And so because school buildings are built for hundreds of students or dozens of students, there's plenty of room to social distance in those environments, kind of like the Capitol these days. Others are, in some communities, there was great concern about teachers that were away for spring break and coming back. And so those, I know in at least one district, some teachers are self-isolating in a hotel in a hub community before they go out to their rural community. And then we are trying to communicate, re-communicate all the guidance, all the advisories, all the mandates that Dr. Zink has been putting out regarding if you've been traveling, these are the things that you need to do to make sure that you don't spread the virus.
Okay, thank you. And Madam Chair.
Follow up.
So we're having schools closed to the end of March. What are the chances that's going to get extended? I mean, what's the likelihood that we may end up not having brick and mortar schools open for students this year?
Through the chair, Representative Tuck, I get that question almost every day because that's one of those elements of uncertainty that just adds stress to an already stressful situation. Unfortunately, if you'd asked me that on Monday, I would have said one thing, and Tuesday a different thing, and Wednesday a different thing, because literally the things happening in the nation, in the world, are impacting things that happen in Alaska and then in our own state as different communities. There are already some school districts that will not be returning at the end of March because of circumstances in our communities. I hesitate to make predictions about the entire rest of the school year because I'm holding out hope that the situation's going to improve. But it is possible that the statewide closure will continue after the end of the month, but I don't know that for sure, but it's not unlikely.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Representative Hopkins.
Thank you. As we're on the topic of waivers and timeframes and things like that, when you make that decision for continuing the closure or not, please make sure you look into what would happen with teacher evaluation timeframes, the necessity for that happening every 2 years, plans of improvements in those 90 days if they're not able to complete them, things like that impact the educators at a much smaller level. I'm assuming you haven't delved into that because you have higher priority issues trying to figure it out, but when you look forward at that calendar, please make sure you take those into consideration as well.
Through the chair, Representative Hopkins, actually, I have had a conversation about that, a brief one. So it's a topic that has come up, and we will be working through that and try to get information out sooner rather than later. But thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So before I end, I want to speak to Alaska's students because we've spoken to a lot of the adults in the situation, but I just want to speak to our students in the state. And I want to say to them that we believe in you. We believe in you. While the world around us is scrambling with uncertainty and sometimes fear, we still believe that you can learn and that you will learn. This virus has impacted a lot of things that are important to all of us, but it's not changed the fact that we are committed to your learning. I also want you to hear this, Alaska students, we need you. We need you in this situation. Now more than ever, we all recognize that we need Alaska students to keep learning. And even when you may not be able to be in your local school, you're still our future. This virus is a reminder to become doctors. We need you to be learning now so that you can become researchers, first responders, scientists. We will also need future experts in shipping, in IT. We're going to need economists. We will need leaders for times just like this in the future. So we cannot let a virus keep you from becoming all that you were meant to be for our state and our country. So I want you, Alaska students, to stare down this virus, and I want you to show the world that you will continue to learn. I want you to show your families that you're working with your teachers to continue on a path toward college or career. And I hope many of you will use this time to find ways to be the face of hope and optimism, to be our promise for the future in a time when we're so uncertain in this difficult time. Show the world that learning is not tied to a specific location. Show the world that no matter where you are, you can continue to grow and thrive and learn. And I want to thank you, Alaska students, for being so patient and flexible as your parents, your teachers, and schools adjust to this new, unpredictable, rapidly changing situation. Thank you for accepting the changes and excelling even in the face of challenges. Thank you for surprising us. So you, Alaska students, by choosing to learn, you'll make this story a story of triumph and not of tragedy. So thank you, committee, for the opportunity to present today.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner.
One final question on this.
Sure, Representative Drummond.
Commissioner, if you could back up to that to the photo of the students. I'm pretty certain that they are on the edge of Westchester Lagoon, one edge of which is in my district, and I'm just guessing, but these kids are either from Inlet View Elementary School, Chugach Optional, potentially Denali, who knows? There are many schools in the neighborhood of Westchester Lagoon, but I'm happy to see these kids sending us a signal that they're going to be okay.
Through the chair, Representative Drummond, they're rising to the challenge, and they represent kids across the state, and I'm very proud of them.
Thank you. Representative Tuck.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the message to our future generations. I really appreciate it. Looking at your Alaska Education Network, the ECHO project, and is the ECHO project teaching educators on the use of the Zoom? Is that correct? And then when you were having some of these meetings, how many, I mean, just looking at, it looks like there's 15 educators on one screen. How many can you get onto a screen like that, and how many you can teleconference this method?
Through the chair, Representative Tuck, thank you for that question. So yesterday I signed on to an ECHO. There were over 300 teachers on. Wow. And so you can't see everybody's face, all 300 at one time, but if you see the little blue arrow on the side up there, it says 2 of 5 screens. You just keep clicking through with more faces. The one that I signed into was a tutorial on how to use Zoom, but the ECHO project has many different presentations on a variety of how to deliver instruction, and a lot of it is educators sharing with each other the solutions that they've come up with to the problem. So I know that the Project Echo would love to have any of you sign on. You can watch, they're recorded, so you can watch them later and just see the variety of things that are happening through that project. And we can get you the links to be able to access that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Question on Echo.
Representative Drummond.
Is this accessible by the public, or you just said that we would need to have links to be able to access it?
I believe that it may be accessible, but our Anchorage School District hosts this for us, and so when Superintendent Dr. Bishop gets on, maybe she can answer that, but if not, we'll get that information to you. The website that's on the department, that is accessible to the public, and we'll be putting as much of the ECHO project and others on that website as possible. ACSA has a website where they're also publishing some things.
Representative Zilkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, in total, how many students in Alaska participate in residential schools in state?
Through the chair, Representative Zilkowski, I don't have that number. It's below 1,000. I'm pretty sure, but I don't have that specific number.
Follow-up? If you could just provide that to me, to my office, that'd be great.
Representative Hopkins.
Thank you. With obviously the teachers are the certified staff are still getting paid as they're working, and some of them are going into the schools and working from there or working from home, as you can see from some of these pictures. But with the classified staff, the education support staff, and the bus drivers that aren't delivering food or helping out in those specific wonderful situations that you brought up, what are you recommending to school districts in terms of continuing to pay and provide benefits to those hourly staff who are support staff and bus drivers?
Through the chair, Representative Hopkins, the advice I'm giving to school districts is to make every minute count for every kid. So what this situation hasn't changed is that there's students that can learn, and there's teachers and support professionals and others that can help support that learning. And so by converting student contact days to in-service days, that keeps districts from having to extend the school year. They're getting their budget has been allocated. They're getting those funds, and so they can continue to pay all those employees. They just need to make sure that every minute counts. And so bus drivers may not be driving a bus route, but there's plenty that can do. I've heard all sorts of creative ways that these folks are being used. I've seen pictures. I had one superintendent that is one of those optimistic, I'm going to make this an opportunity to say that next school year they're going to have the best opening of school they've ever had, because they're going to get to do things that they usually don't have time to accomplish.
Follow-up?
Follow-up.
Thank you. So bus drivers who can't help prepare or do something in the schools, or there's not a food delivery program, what have you heard about what is happening with their ability to continue to work on the contracts that they have with those school districts?
Through the chair, Representative Hopkins, I haven't heard anything specific about anybody not working. I've only heard stories of people that are working, and I just keep sending the message, there's something for everybody to do, even in this situation.
Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to just clarify on the record, will monthly payments go out to districts just continue to be made as we do under the foundation entitlements?
To the chair, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And then one thing I really want to answer, and then we will be moving on to Dr. Bishop, is during this, unprecedented time that we're facing, we really, as the legislature, want to know what we can do to support you, our students, our teachers, our support staff.
To the chair, Representative Story, one is inviting the department up here to give this presentation, I think, is helpful. It gets information out to people. It gives us an opportunity to thank folks. And it gives an opportunity for you to ask questions that I'm sure constituents are calling your office about. And then secondly, is those those calls from your constituents, helping us to get the information out that supports our local schools. So the more that you can help us get information to your constituents, whether it's links to websites, resources from telecom providers, and ideas from other school districts and how to make sure every student has an opportunity to learn, that's helpful to us also.
Well, please keep us informed. Let us know if we can do anything. And then one other question. I've been noticing that in some other districts, they have been opening up some of their school facilities as child care places for families of public health workers who have to work in our hospitals and medical clinics. And is that something that is an option here in Alaska if we need to do that?
Through the chair, Representative Story, I can give you more specific information from Department of Health and Social Services, but I know they sent out guidance to those providers, and I don't have it in front of me, so I can't speak to specifics, but I know they're mindful of that.
Okay. Well, I cannot thank you enough, the department, all of our
I'm going to add in here because of Andy Story's question.
Our families, our
She just verified 100% what we have all known since day one, that our school systems is nothing more than a daycare system and a place that people can go to take their showers, get their water, and get free meals provided to them all day long.
They're mindful of that.
Okay. Well, I cannot thank you enough, the department, all of our school personnel, our families, our students, for everything everyone's doing to sort of pull together at this difficult time. As we know, schools are the heart of our community and the students are our life, they're our future. And so there's nothing that we care about more and are more concerned about. So thank you. I feel like they're in good hands, and this learning supports are greatly appreciated. And I'm so glad we're going to go on to hear from some superintendents who are on the ground now. So thank you. I'm going to turn now to Dr. Dina Bishop, who is the superintendent of Anchorage Schools. I greatly appreciate your time, the committee does, in taking time to come and to speak to us today. Welcome, and please put your name and affiliation on the record and begin.
Thank you, Representative Story, and thank you to the House Education Committee. I did send a presentation just with some pictures, but part of that is just an agenda at the beginning where we just really go through our reports from our incident command center, and I'll just follow that because that was the first part of the slide. If we can catch up with that in a minute. But let me start by saying thank you once again and for inviting me to speak. We are focused on keeping students, employees, and community members safe and healthy, of course, and we began that back February 21st, and my has the world changed since then by getting out of the gate and canceling all international travel, and then secondly, canceling domestic travel a couple days later. And I think that this has had a positive impact. We might never know because you never know what you've saved, but you always know the decisions that weren't correct. So I'm hoping that this helped Alaska. We would have, in those 2 weeks, had over 880 students and employees traveling either domestically out of Alaska, or 130 of them were overseas. So I'm happy that decision came out early in the gate. With so many Alaskans, a large number of our staff and students did travel, however, so we're paying attention to their spring break travels, and we're doing an assessment on them to ensure that our staff who are at low risk if they're coming into the buildings. Teachers did have a choice of teleworking from Monday or doing it from their classroom, as the commissioner said. And again, that is really due to the low risk, medium risk, and high risk categories defined by the CDC. Other employees are also working from home. I know I'm trying to answer some of the questions that came up. Our TAs and other drivers as long as folks are on call and ready to work and we provide jobs and they're ready to come in, we are paying folks. We are doing administrative leave for those that have to stay home due to medium or high risk and can't be around others. We're sending out communications daily, if not every other day, and we have our website, which is easy to find, relevant, and resourceful. Every day we also have a medical update from our administrative team, and I want to let you know that we are the city has opened up its second drive-through test site, or will be set up to March 23rd, so we're working closely with the Anchorage EOC and participating. Our health nurse coordinator, as well as our 108 health nurses, are coordinating with the city. The healthcare, to get one of those drive-through sites, though, you do need a authorization from your provider, your local provider. Incidentally, of our 108 nurses, only 23 are available and are low risk now because the others had students travel with them. And by Dr. Zink's order, anyone who has a family that traveled and they live in the same household or they have traveled are at a medium risk and they should not be around others. So our nurses are actually working on the 211 number for our city, answering questions citywide. So we have not only when we can't stand up here for positions, our TAs, bus drivers are being deployed to our city to work cooperatively. But our nurses are also, are doing in-home visits, and they're performing tasks normally done at the school for which families are uncomfortable. We have lots of medically fragile kids on feeding tubes, and our nurses are visiting those homes and assuring those parents and helping them out. We're also delivering meals to those students as well as their siblings. I mentioned the MOA, the Municipality of Anchorage. We are part of their emergency command, and it's operating 7 days a week now, and it's going to relocate from their center to one of our schools so that those EOC operatives can practice social distancing. So we're about to set that up, and it'll probably be open next week. We're looking at West High. Our Deputy Superintendent, Mark Stock, in regard to education, he's participating on a national panel for Hanover Research to share information with large school districts. The Council of Great City Schools is a cooperative as well. As you know, Anchorage is one of the 100th largest school districts in the nation. The number one issue cited at this level and really around, and we're wondering, is the equity of free and appropriate education, what we call FAPE, free and appropriate public education. And the idea that if we move education forward, are we able to assist students who may have an IEP or other needs to ensure that we have equitable services. And we are concerned about that. Therefore, the first 2 days of this different way of work and work service, our teachers reached out to make personal phone calls. It wasn't an online survey. It was actually, I'm your teacher and I'm here to give you a call. And we've reached, of our students, over 47,000 calls went out, and I just want to give you a little bit of data on that. So to give you a mind's eye of Alaska and our Anchorage itself, 79% of our families were actually responded with a call. We didn't have to leave a message. And 88% of those said that they're okay with childcare right now. Those that are not, we capture that data, see what we can do about that. At least 95% of our families have one device. Most of those, or at least 15% of those one devices, are phones with internet. The rest could be a laptop, iPad, a computer at home. So we know that we have connectivity. 86% is directly to the internet. 90% of the internet can be wireless. Only 63% of those that responded have a printer at home, so we know that that is going to be, if anything needs to be printed. Our internet is good speed, they say, and I did want to make a shout out to the providers. GCI offered a discount, and ACS as well, offering it free, actually, to all students and employees of the Anchorage School District through the end of the school year. So we're really happy about that. Our goal is to deploy our 20,000 or more Chromebooks to families that need them with a wireless so that we can make connections. But that doesn't mean that paper and pencil ways are out. We are just gearing up for those as well. We are just, like I said, this week deployed our staff to do mission readiness. What was mentioned also was ECHO, and I want you to understand that the ECHO network is actually, Zoom is the platform. It's the technology that's used in the ECHO network, but the ECHO network came from the rural Midwest universities so that medical people could connect on when it wasn't easy for them to get with each other. It started with the health care. And that's what the H is for the health organizations in ECHO. And that they could talk about problems of practice so that these doctors could call into each other. It just so happened that we found out last year that UAA, with their health program, was part of the ECHO network. And so the chancellor there let us borrow their network. And we've been setting this up for a year now to talk about best practices in education and have different people come on board to talk about the ACEs or how, the best practices for reading. There's about a 15-minute mini lesson, and then really it's about connecting and learning from each other. What the ECHO networks are now, and what we're doing now, is taking those expertise of the people that were in Anchorage who set this up to really troubleshoot and connect educators around our state, connect parents. Students can contact in. You could even join the ECHO if you want to learn more about how to operate Zoom. Again, whoever is talking at that time, this is to Representative Tuck's thing, your picture actually comes to the forefront, and then you go back into the queue of the thumbnails. So there's a way to raise your hand online, things like that. But we just want to teach everyone how to do that. Specifically, over the weekend, we deployed and tested all of our students to have ECHO, or rather Zoom platform, and our teachers. And we're working this Thursday and Friday, meeting with every staff member. Our principals are running ECHO staff meetings every day to check in, to be able to touch base with their employees at the buildings. For each teacher to learn how to really run an ECHO session well, so that when we get our kids on board, they will be able to see each other. We know that learning is a social event, and we don't want to miss that out. Same thing with our adults. That water cooler talk, where you just touch base and say, hey, how you doing? We need to continue to keep those relationships strong. Some of the ideas that have come out when they meet, some fun ones, just so you know, yesterday they had a take your pet to work day, and the staff members from home who logged in were either in front of their fish tank or had their little kitty cat on their lap, but wherever they logged in from, they made sure they showed their fellow staff mates their puppies and things like that. But again, they're actually, this has provided us a little way to learn more about our fellow colleagues. We also had hat days going on. So we're really finding ways to make connections and make the most of our present situation. We in Anchorage will always look at the cup half full. You have to do that for our future of our kids. But we're meeting virtually, and many of our teachers are going into their classrooms by themselves, only if they're low risk and operating. They might not see another person all day, but they want to do some work in their classrooms. They're certainly allowed to if they're low risk individuals. But many are just working from home, especially if they have very young children to watch after since school's out. As far as secondary, this came up. We're really focusing on the long-term offering of instruction. We're focusing first on graduating seniors. Interestingly enough, when we did review, 60% of our seniors, which is about 4,000 of them, already have enough credits to graduate. But you see, that's really not necessarily our focus, because kids that graduate, remember, commencement just means it's the beginning. So we need to tie in what we're doing now to what they're going to do later. So whether that's college or the workplace, even if you can graduate, we're continuing to work with our kids to determine what are they going to do in the future and how can we continue that learning to have them ready for the next level of their life. Coursework in language arts, social studies, math are the four core. Science as well, we're focusing on first, and electives will come 2 weeks later. But we're reviewing 15,000 different courses, and we have the ability, due to using Apex, to really assess students at the quarter they're in and just have them finish that last quarter with their teachers being coaches. We can find alternate ways as well if the teachers are comfortable deploying online as well. So lots of different avenues and lots of different teachers working on this. Teachers are experts at what they do, which is teaching, so we're using their input on how best to meet kids' needs. As far as district-wide teaching and learning is our curriculum, and the elementary level, we're really focusing on English, language arts, and math, because that's the core of the fundamentals that kids will need. just like Michael said, that Commissioner Johnson said, we're focusing and just supporting families with resources. Our assigned ELL teachers are assigned to interpreting and translation needs so that our families' needs are met. That also was done in our family surveys to find out what are the resources you need. We're getting the right resources at the right time in the right places. Again, we also network with Zoom with other Big Five school districts and others who want to join. Our school districts are sharing information about the resources we have statewide and really learning from each other and helping. In regard to special education, we're surveying families to identify the special education needs and really looking at tutoring, extended school days, and compensatory learning models. We will have home visits in this area as well. We're really re-looking at the IEPs. We want to provide equity, and we want to keep moving with learning, so we're willing to do this. Many districts and states across the nation, are just shutting down, calling the school year because they're afraid of the equity or want to stand away from the equity issue if they can't deploy it. But understanding we really want our kids to continue learning and feel like they can learn online. Alaska is a prime place to demonstrate that this could work. We're working on state approval now, and that's something that you could assist us with teletherapy so that we can deploy things, therapy over video or telephone, but it requires licensure, and so we're seeking state assistance with that. In additional opportunities, you mentioned again, what are the TAs doing, the teachers' assistants? You know what? We are building up opportunities for staff trainings so that we can gain competencies with our TAs so that our employees, school districts, and our education really is a matter of the people who deploy the education and the kids and the families that receive it. And so people matter. So we're building capacity in our people. So even if they can't work in the buildings, they're continuing to work, whether it's on the operational side or continuing their learning. As far as IT, again, we set up that Zoom account for every child and staff member in our district, and they work and test them out over the weekend. We are up and running again. Just to mention, our EOC started on last Friday, at 11 o'clock every day. We meet and give these updates. Just so the state knows, hacking across the nation is up threefold, especially what's true in our district as well. So we need to keep up and caution everyone about the home use, that computers that go home should be set up with the protocols necessary so that nobody in Alaska breaks down. As again, I said before, many of our students have multiple devices, and we're going to deploy as many as possible. In regard to human resources, this is really a matter of setting up telework agreements with the different collective bargaining units and just answering leave and pay issues. We are continuing regular payroll during these 2 weeks. In regard to operations, happy to say that 4,500 meals were delivered on Monday and Tuesday. Yesterday, or rather on Wednesday, 7,000. I don't have the number for yesterday, but we continue to grow. We've offered about 10 bus routes that go into our neighborhoods to deploy food service, as well as our nurses sitting on those buses, that when parents and their students come up one at a time, one family at a time, of course, to the bus, that they can have, if they have any questions regarding the nurse or anything else, that they can get answers face-to-face. This Friday, we're deploying meals for the entire weekend. And really, again, helping with understanding what's happening in our homes so that we know, do we need foods with a heat source, food deployed without a heat source in the home. Again, working closely with the municipality on the operations side, setting up the space for the EOC, looking at campfire and potentially other small groups coming in to run childcare, 10 or under, again, but no one in the childcare can have traveled within the last 14 days, but they have to be small groups, and we're happy to do that. And of course, we're lending out our electrostatic sprayers for sanitation. ASD was able to purchase these in November, and they are certainly, there was a news article done on it. Certainly, the shelters are also around our city asking for use, and we're supplying those. In regard to finance, we had to immediately set up emergency procurement so that we can get the needs and the resources deployed. And our warehouse crews are operating like they would in summers, where they deliver throughout the summer to buildings even when there isn't a large staff there. Communications is just broadening our social media presence to be able to capture our families and students and staff, and doing public service announcements, highlighting meal service and community partnerships. We're just happy to do so. It's great work. I don't know if my presentation could be uploaded. I can show you the pictures of everything I just talked about, but if not, we can just go to questions.
Yes, Commissioner, Dr. Bishop, your slides have arrived, and we've got them up on the screen.
Yeah, if you want to go to the second one, the second one is really the agenda that I just showed you. In regard to each of those topics, each day in our EOC, we review those and we have an update. So every day we have an update. It's in real time. And I see that it's on the front, still the front page.
Yeah.
Got it? All right.
Yes, so daily updates. Is that what you'd like?
The agenda. Yep. And so go on, and the next are just pictures so that you can have a mind's eye about heating instructions are on the bag. And you have there they are, the bags there. We are using TAs, teachers, assistants, bus drivers, as well as our cafeteria staff to really service up schools. Bus drivers actually are supporting by keeping the organization structure, having parents and their kids, if they come, keeping 6 feet apart. And just really making sure, having lots of people on hand to be able to just do the supports necessary. There's a bus driver, if you go to the next slide, in a neighborhood, quiet neighborhood, no cars on the streets, but the bus driver. We did get a social media post from a parent that said the kids were so excited they watched from the window. If you can move to the next slide. They watched from the window of the kids coming by on the kids watched from the windows to see the buses come by. Next slide is the buses. And next slide, you can see how it is in the neighborhood, the deployment of those. Next slide, one family, lots of kids, as you can see, we're servicing. We have kids and one family coming up at a time to get their lunches, talk to people. We have a nurse on the bus as well that's keeping track. The nurse right there is actually in the pink hat, I think, just checking in with families. And we're going on social media that if you have a question, the 211 number will help. You'll get help regarding health, but we also have face-to-face for our families that are nervous about that. If you look at the next slide, deploying, we used our Zoom Echo system to deploy the first publicly, if you can go to the next slide, public meeting by Zoom. The board secretary and I were in the building. And there it is, in the building, that's she and I running it from AFD. The picture on the bottom left is our public testimony, just in case people showed up. They have a computer there that they can see the meeting in the other room and do their testimony if they showed up. But we also took phone-in testimony. And on the right there, you see our agenda with all the board and myself. As we had speakers, then their picture would fly up on that screen. Again, it was the first, I think in the state of Alaska, the first public board meeting, all on electronically. It worked like a charm.
Proving once again, multi-million dollars can be saved yearly if they were to go into the 21st century.
First page, next slide. The commissioner really had the same information. Next slide. Next slide. And next slide, you see the one there is when he mentioned a YouTube. If you see a picture of a gentleman in a captain's hat, that was they're running radio shows and YouTube from their classrooms and then deploying them to kids, answering kids' questions. It's just having a real good time. This one is a video, just something else. I don't know if it'll play. Nope, not going to play. The former picture was a former student who's now a safety at the LA Rams that said, hey, kids, if you want to be safe, wash your hands, stay distance, and do your homework kind of thing. So just fun people reaching out to share with our kids. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I am through my presentation for you this morning.
Here he comes, if we can get the sound up here.
Okay, Riverside.
It showed up
On the screen.
Other side. Other side.
All right.
Lower right, tiny
All
little
right.
microphone.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, that's about it. It might be just your speakers.
Yeah, let's see if they're...
They need to get those same kids that they are
Dr.
dissing,
Bishop, so we're just taking
saying
a second to see
parents
if it goes
can't
now.
help them
No
how to
worries.
run things.
We'll try again.
Hey, Golden View Middle School. I'm Taylor Rapp, safety for the LA Rams. Principal Nod, the GVMS staff, and I want you to focus on your overall health during this COVID-19 safety concern. Be active, read, and focus on staying game ready every day. Go Suns!
That was great. Thank you for including
Yeah,
that.
just a little-
We have a question from Representative Zolkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Mitchell, thank you for your time today. Or Bishop, thank you for your time today. I recognize that we're tight with time, but I was hoping you could talk a little bit about the teletherapy and licensure needs that you had mentioned.
Sure. I don't have the detail on that, but certainly for teletherapy in regard to speech, language, occupational therapy, they are working now with our commissioner and the Commissioner of Health to be able to get that online licensure. I can provide that information later. In order to actually have those count as therapy and meeting students' needs, we would just need to license our specialists. And generally, there is licensure in the state, and it's given. We just have not deployed that with our people, like our occupational therapists and speech therapists, because they didn't need it before. So we're just looking for assistance in speeding up that licensure, and we were told by the commissioner that that is one of the things that he would assist us on.
Follow up?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That would be great. If you could stay in touch with my office. We heard from some other private providers that were looking to kind of escalate their timeframes for licensure as well for community need response. And I would just be curious to hear how that works out for the school district to ensure that we've covered those bases. Thank you.
Representative Drummond has a question, and then we're going to have to move on so we can get to the next superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Bishop. That was an incredible presentation. When you were talking about the thousands of phone calls that your teachers made to students and families, you described deploying our something Chromebooks along with internet access, and you faded out at that point. Can you please clarify that statement?
Sure. So thank you, Representative Drummond. In ASD already we have, and if you're familiar with Chromebooks, they really use the cloud well. They don't have a lot of memory, so they're inexpensive computers, just so you know. So we have lots of them. And what we're doing, usually it's Chromebook cards used in classroom to classroom. We're changing them back from cards to individual use so that they, it's basically about their chargers. You know, they charge on a card. Now we're going to have them individually charged. We bought Wi-Fi hotspots, purchased those right away, actually even last week, understanding that this could go for a long time. And we're going to deploy them to families. The hotspots are already safe. So anyone that logs in through an ASD account, it's going to be a safe account on those computers, and that's all they can use. So we're ensuring the FCC regulations, things like that on them. So we're going to deploy them to families and just have our kids who need a device at home to have it, as well as with free internet. If families have internet, GCI is boosting the level of data. ACS will do the same, but they've also, at least ACS has offered absolutely free. And so we want to get that hooked up with no hookup fee. And so we want to get that to our families so that they can use Wi-Fi or a hard line to be able to have kids have access. Equity is a big thing for us. So we're going to deploy these computers the same time we do with our buses. Once they're ready, the buses are going to go around in neighborhoods, and we are going to sign out computers to kids and families, and with instructions on a video or written how to hook up and get their email working through it, and how to get the internet working so that our families and really through the summer can have this access.
Follow up?
We have over 20,000 of them.
Thank you. That was the number I was looking for. Thank you, Dr. Bishop. Excellent.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Bishop, for all you're doing to support our families, students, and our teaching staff and our paraprofessionals, and working with our transportation officials, and getting our bus drivers and everyone to work. It's challenging times, and you are really rising to the occasion, and we appreciate your leadership. Thank you for calling in today. We're going to be going to Superintendent Daniel Walker, but I would like to have Commissioner Johnson come back. He has said that an important announcement just came forward from the U.S. Department of Education, and I'd like you to put that on the record, please.
Okay, for the record, Michael Johnson, the Commissioner of Education and Early Development, and the committee had asked, we talked about assessments while I was presenting. Yesterday I had a great call from Secretary DeVos. We had a great conversation. She asked about Alaska's specific needs and was very generous with her time and offering support to us. She sent an email to all state chiefs while I was presenting that the U.S. Department of Education will be granting waivers for statewide assessments and the accountability system. There's a process we have to go through, so I'm not announcing that there won't be assessments. We'll have to go through the waiver process, but the email indicates that they're going to work with states to make sure that those waivers are put in place and have even a 24-hour turnaround time when we submit those waivers. So we'll be working on that as a department so that we can make an announcement as soon as possible.
Oh, no peaks testing. Scorecards have been eliminated. Lucky them. They can be a failure and not anybody know about it.
PFD School District. So if you could introduce yourself for the record, I would appreciate that.
All right. Thank you, Representative Story and members of the House Education Committee. My name is Daniel Walker, and I'm the superintendent for the Lower Kuskokwim School District, headquartered out of Bethel, Alaska. LKSD, as you likely know, is the largest REAA. We have approximately 4,000 students in 29 schools, 23 communities, over 22,000 square miles. I made the following statement to our staff earlier this week, that at the end of the day, we will never know if we are overreacting to this global pandemic, but it will be crystal clear if we underreacted or did too little. This is even more true in our small, remote communities where access to care and services is more difficult. We believe strongly that in our remote communities, we need to err in the extreme on the side of caution, social distancing, and isolation to mitigate the spread of the virus. Early on, when the governor made the decision to issue the health mandate, we had, right before that, closed our schools for the current week. We have now, with his health mandate, extended that, and we immediately mobilized our leadership team to develop our plan for how we would go about providing services and also mitigating any risk to our communities. We are continuing with food service for our students. As you can imagine, that in 23 communities, including the hub community of Bethel, that's going to look different in all of our communities. In Bethel, we will be transitioning next week to our bus drivers delivering those meals at our bus stops. In our village communities, right now, students are coming to the school, and we have a setup in each of our schools for students to receive those prepackaged meals and to take them home for use at home. And we're working through that and trying to find continued flexibility for getting those. One of the things to note about the food service is that right now the requirements from USDA require that the student pick up the meal for us to be able to count that. So while the parents can come with them, it's interesting that the students have to be the ones to pick up the meal for us to be able to count that for reimbursement. If there's any way to get flexibility on that so that as students may not be able to get out if they're sick or infirmed in any way, it would be helpful if we could get that flexibility. From a technology side of things, we are working with all of our sites to distribute devices. We're fortunate to have a lot of devices and should be able to provide a device for every student. As you know, though, in rural Alaska, access to the internet is quite limited. We are working with GCI. They are our service provider, and we are working with them to get internet access set up in all of the homes of our students, and as well as our teachers who, if they don't have it in their home, will be able to get free internet through the end of May at this point. Our Director of Special Ed is working with all of our special education teachers and sites to provide for the continuation of special education services. That's going to look different at all of our sites, and we're working through the logistics of that. We also have to continue planning for recruitment with the pretty much nationwide shutdown of all of the job fairs. We are transitioning to a more online virtual recruitment mode. We've done a lot of that, so it's a pretty easy transition for us. Our directors of elementary and secondary education are conducting grade level meetings across the district in collaboration with our teachers and principals. We have our school counselors and social workers continuing to provide services through telework with our students. All of our teachers are contacting by phone all of our students. I think that is going well, and reports from our communities is that we are able to make that happen, and it is ongoing. My Assistant Superintendent, Kimberly Hankins, and I have focused most of our initial work on communication with our site administrators and the public, and we continue to do so. We have held daily Zoom calls with our site administrators to keep them updated, to answer questions, and to problem solve. We have also held a district-wide Zoom call with all of our classified and certified staff that were invited to attend. We had well over 400 LKSD staff on our Zoom call with almost 400 individual connections. It is a great platform for us to be using. Zoom is providing their basic service free to educators, and we have an updated account so that we can hold up to 1,000 simultaneous connections. So far, that has worked great for us in being able to communicate with our sites. As you might imagine, logistics in LKSD and rural Alaska in general is challenging, to say the least. Travel is hard and likely will become harder as our communities begin to close down to visitors. We've already had a number of our communities contact us and tell us they do not want visitors coming in. That is going to make it much more difficult for us, and we're working on an individual basis with those communities to be able to continue to provide services and getting goods and services in there. LKSD is meeting the needs of our students for continued educational services in multiple ways. Packets and materials are being sent home for students. We're doing online instruction when possible. And I think as we roll out the internet in our homes, we will be doing more and more testing on that. Obviously, the equity issue is really important, and so we'll be looking at that closely. We're looking at class audio conferences established by the teachers, individual phone calls to students, individual phone calls to parents and guardians. We are looking at the use of flipped lessons and loading content on thumb drives and other opportunities for us to get content out to our students. We are utilizing all staff in an effort to keep everyone employed. We are asking our sites to use every creative way to keep staff employed and working and receiving paychecks in support of student learning and moving our schools forward. There's an immense opportunity during this time for all of the projects that we never have time to do to try to get those done and still implementing social distancing and keeping everyone safe. We are working to stay abreast of the mental health needs of our staff and have provided resources for the district's employee assistance program. As you might imagine, that the anxiety level of our staff members is high, to say the least, and so we're doing everything we can to help them deal with the isolation and the uncertainty as we move forward. Distance from family, obviously, for our educators who come from outside is a big issue, and we're working to alleviate their concerns and their anxiety. We are providing flexible work options for our staff members. That includes options to work from home and flexible work schedules to accommodate child care. We want some of the things we would like for our legislators to know is that our staff is working hard to deliver high-quality continued education services during the school closure. Our staff are anxious. The feeling of isolation is very real, and even more so in our village communities. Concern and separation of families in other parts of Alaska and the lower 48 weighs heavily on people's minds. The knowledge that all of us in the state of Alaska are navigating this situation together is helpful. There is great concern for the health of our elders and the capacity of our local healthcare system to meet the needs once the COVID-19 comes to Bethel and to the remote areas. Many of our communities, as I mentioned, are restricting or closing down travel into their communities, and this will impact our ability to deliver services. Many of our communities are worried about their ability and capability to provide basic services such as water. People are concerned about this basic need. Construction projects are likely to be put on hold. This could increase some of our construction costs, and this will be a need that has to be addressed at some point down the road, depending on how it manifests. The long-term impact on our ability to recruit and retain teachers is real. People are scared. We are focused first and foremost on the health and well-being of our communities, and as I mentioned, there is grave concern about the health and well-being of our most vulnerable populations in our remote communities where access to health care is more difficult. To that end, we are providing maximum flexibility. There is concern that during this time that our communities may run low on basic supplies. I have directed our site administrators that as the pandemic progresses, we need to remember that we are all in this together with our individual communities. If we need to provide goods and services to our communities, we are dealing with them on a case-by-case basis. I'm extremely grateful to GCI for helping us cross the digital divide in our rural communities, and I know that it is going to tax their network to the max in rural Alaska, and I am really grateful for them. And I just want to maybe leave it with, we have some incredibly innovative educational options that our teachers are looking at rolling out. And I know that we will get through this. We are doing everything we can to stay ahead of the curve and keep a positive attitude about this and lower folks' anxiety level. I think that as we move forward, it's going to be important. The commissioner has done a great job of keeping superintendents informed and having those daily meetings with us. I know that it's going to help if the state can make decisions sooner rather than later on what future closures may look like and how we count days. It's going to be important for us to know one way or the other if the school year is going to be extended. If it is not going to be extended, then we need to know that. It helps as we're planning for budget-wise for us to be able to keep our employees working and keep paychecks going to them, even if it's in some mode of administrative leave. If they extend the school year, then that will be a budgetary consideration, and the sooner we know that, the better. With that, I'm going to stop and open it up if there are any questions from the committees. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that information. We do have a couple questions. Representative Zolkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Superintendent Walker, it's always great to hear from you. We heard a really compelling presentation from REL Northwest and ICER on Wednesday about contributing factors for teacher, principal, administrative turnover throughout Alaska, in particular the sobering statistics that we know all too well in rural Alaska. You mentioned the mental health condition of your teachers and the level of anxiety that they're feeling. Recognizing that eventually we're going to make it through this pandemic together, have there been teachers who have reached out to you and communicated a sense of wanting to leave the district at this point?
Thank you, Representative Zolkowski, and through the chair, yes, we have had a number of people extremely concerned, and we are again providing maximum flexibility. I think there is no doubt in my mind that this is going to have a negative impact on our ability to recruit and retain people. They feel the isolation of being in their rural, remote communities. They are worried about their ability to get their basic needs met. They're worried about the health care. They're worried about being able to get groceries. They're worried about when the school year ends, if there is going to be restricted travel and whether they will be able to get to their homes in the lower 48. It is very real and obviously very concerning to us.
Follow-up?
Follow-up, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Superintendent Walker, for that. I know that if our teachers are feeling that sentiment, there's no doubt that our residents in those communities are also feeling that way. And I hope that we, once we weather this storm together, are able to identify a way to provide support for recruitment and retention, in particular for our rural communities. Superintendent Walker, I was also wondering, Representative Drummond had mentioned earlier in the hearing that there has been some flexibility by internet service providers to use phones as hotspots. In some of the areas, I was hoping you could speak to, you had mentioned 4,000 students within the district. How many of those students do not have internet connection at home, and has GCI communicated a willingness to be flexible in using cellular as a hotspot?
Thank you, Representative Zolkowski, and through the chair. We have a great partnership with GCI. I have been in pretty much daily communication with Dr. Pam Lloyd from GCI, and they are looking really at all options, including the use of cell phones as Wi-Fi hotspots, providing students. I don't have statistics on the percentage of kids and families that have internet in their homes or viable internet where they could actually connect and conduct lessons. My anecdotal sense of it is that obviously in Bethel there are going to be more households that do have it compared to our village communities. Our village communities, I think it is, other than their phones with their hotspots, I think it is pretty limited. I have heard that there are families in our remote communities that have come together to buy the service, and that they share a hotspot. So they'll set up a wireless hotspot for, say 2 to 3 homes to be able to share. So that is, there may be some of that going on, but I think by and large that most of our families simply can't afford the cost of broadband in rural Alaska. And so I think, it's going to take a while to roll out the free internet, and we're going to be doing everything we can to provide the information to GCI so that that is able to manifest and get going sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Superintendent Walker. One question I have is, how is your district using telehealth?
Well, we have been doing telework, which means we have been using it for teletherapy, for speech language, and other sorts of social services. We have social workers and counselors. We have 9 master's level social workers that work for the school district, plus an additional 6 counselors. They are all using various modes of teletherapy to provide services to our communities. So that is, we have been fortunate to have been on kind of the front edge of providing distance delivery and distance work in terms of that teletherapy for the last number of years. So we have some experience with that. We're transitioning more to the Zoom network so that students can actually call into one of those Zoom connections with their phone and talk like it's just on a phone line. So that has, I think, been a huge help for us, and will hopefully continue to be a huge help. Obviously, our social workers and counselors, it's not uncommon for them to be talking on the phone one-on-one with kids just from a direct phone connection. And so we will continue to do that, and we'll continue to find innovative ways to connect with our families through audio and where capable, video.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Walker, and please give our thanks to your staff, and we appreciate all your efforts there. I'm going to move to Superintendent of Schools in Juneau, Dr. Bridget Weiss. I did want to let the committee know and the presenter that we will be able to just have a short presentation, about 5 minutes, and then we will have to wrap it up. There's a meeting at 10. So with that, Superintendent Weiss, please introduce yourself for the record. Are you on mute, Dr. Weiss? We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Please proceed.
Yes. So I'm Dr. Bridget Weiss, and I am the superintendent in Juneau School District. I will be quick. I know you're short on time. Many of the strategies that we are employing are similar to what you have heard. So I'll just touch on a few things. Certainly, generally, the impacts are, how do we feed our kids? How do we deliver instruction? How do we communicate with families and students? The increased level of family stress and staff stress is really impacting the work we're doing. The level of anxiety generally in our communities, as everyone across the country is experiencing, is definitely hitting our families as well. One of and we're having to rethink literally every structure. So our board meeting last night, as an example, in very short order, we figured out how to deliver that via distance, and we had a great number of participants, almost 40 people or so logged in and participating, which is more than we get in a in-person board meeting opportunity. So there are definitely some silver linings. I don't know for sure which slide you're on. If you want to flip to the meals slide, the third slide, you can see the number. We were able to scramble late last week and over the weekend to prepare to deliver meals on Monday of this week. So we started serving meals right away in Juneau. By the end of today, probably in about an hour, we will have delivered about 4,400 meals this week to our families. The rules and regulations around this are changing rapidly, so I'm working very closely with our food services director in changing how we can get food to our families. In particular, our special needs population was mentioned before. Having to have the student present is just not possible for some of our families. So we are working on variations and how we can do that. So I'm pretty excited about progress there. In the next slide, I mentioned just some of the things we're thinking about in terms of instruction. First of all, like everyone, we're paying attention to equity. We don't want to not do something for some kids because we can't do that exact same thing for all kids, but we want to make sure that all kids have access. So that's our challenge. Teachers have done an incredible job this week responding so quickly. Our paraprofessionals have been engaged. Reading stories to children via FaceTime, phone call. We're delivering packages. We're having students and families pick up packages of things, delivering online instruction, etc. So all those things we're working on. One of our biggest challenges, of course, is our special education population, which is our most vulnerable set of families, and many of those needs are very complex. So we are digging deep into how we can support those individual families. We've made phone calls to families, special education families in particular, but teachers have also reached out to their students. The amount of support that we've had through our Alaska Council of School Administrators and our Alaska Superintendent Association has been incredible. We have a tight-knit group of superintendents because of these organizations, and in times like this, it makes a huge difference. So they're providing a lot of support through ASDN and learning through that way for our teachers and our administrators. So we really, and I also just do want to say that part of what we are able to do is because of the professional development we've been able to offer our students. And I have a note on the slide that not all previous PD support was cut last night, but certainly some of our professional development and much of our curricular support had to be cut in our final reading of our budget last night. Very heart-wrenching decisions we're having to make as districts, and all of those things get exposed when we have any crisis, and this is a major one, obviously. If you want to just flip through the next three slides, they're just photos of celebration of what we have been doing in the district in the last 4.5 days. You can just kind of keep going through those three slides of some photos. People are definitely coming together. It's pretty incredible to see. In closure, I will just say that the unknown, like for everybody, is very unnerving. And what we know is we're losing really precious ground for students, and somehow we're going to have to rethink everything that we do this summer and in the fall to support our kids and make up lost ground. We're covering a lot of what we can do, but we're not going to deliver the same level of instruction wholly that we would if we had kids with us every day. So we know we're going to do some planning around that, but that's going to be expensive and very important. And just lastly, again, big thank yous to Deed, to our communities. Everybody is pulling together, but it is heart-wrenching to think about how we're going into the fall so resource depleted in all of our districts. So we just appreciate all the support that we've had and the amazing work that our staff is doing, our maintenance, our custodial, paraprofessionals. We have all hands on deck and are supporting every employee as much as possible in their individual needs around being at work or working from home, and reassuring people that they will be paid and that they all play a very critical role in how we provide needs through this really complex time.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Weiss. I also know that hopefully you have connections in talking with First students and their bus drivers and their staff and how they'll be used, as well as making sure our paraprofessionals are clear on their work roles and that their job security. I did want to just say it's very heartening to see everyone pulling together in these times, and I appreciate all your hard work and your staff's hard work, and think of our families. So thank you very much for calling in today. I wanted to thank all the presenters who took out their time out to tell their story. I see that Representative Tarr has been here for much of the presentations. Thank you for that. Wellness of students, nothing more important to all of us here in Alaska. And much of the burden of keeping them safe is falling on our leaders, and they're rising to the occasion. We can't thank them enough. And I hope with our legislature that we here will do everything in our power to support them and their work. And working together, we will get through this. And we will be back together playing and learning and building relationships. But let's stay safe now. And thank you, everyone, very much. And if there are no further comments or questions, I'm going to adjourn. Representative Drummond.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say that everything I've heard today is going to demonstrate to the public in Alaska how important schools are to every single one of our communities, and the way school superintendents and staffs are pulling together for the good of their communities is going to be a shining star in this state, I believe. Thank you, Superintendent Weiss and Superintendent Walker, for getting on the phone with us, and also Superintendent Bishop for describing to us exactly what is going on.
All right, I'm just going to stop it right there. There's nothing more than them ad-libbing what they want to say here at the given testimony today. All the superintendents, 3 different superintendents, 4 altogether if you count the head of everything in the school districts, talking about how they're going to implement this new education program to our students that cannot go to school. Their number one concern is making sure that Meals on Wheels is going and delivering food to the children. They have set up the busing service. Our buses that take our students to and from school are now going on routes, hand delivering free food to the children that are supposed to be getting free food. We listened to the rural superintendents, the one from Juneau, the one from the Kuskokwim Lower District, Bethel area, things like that, that testified. Their main concerns wasn't about being able to provide a quality education to our children. It was about what are they going to do without the free food that they get every day? What are they going to do without the access to the water that the school provides every day? What are they going to do without the showers the school provides every single day? These poor children. Oh my God. Why are people in Alaska even having kids if we are so incompetent that we can't feed our own kids? That we can't provide heat in our homes for our children, that we cannot make sure that they are, they just have the basic needs in life. The mental health problems that are issuing in school. Parents are too incompetent to teach them how to do the new math. Parents are just stupid. They need to go back to school and learn how to do the new math so that they can teach the children how to do the new math. But parents are not welcome in school no more to be aides because you guys and we are all just an interference to them programming and teaching our children what they want them to learn. Over and over and over again on this entire 2 hours that they've had this education discussion, meeting, whatever you want to call it there, it revolved around free food, mental health, government employees losing their jobs. It had nothing to do with education of our children. It had everything to do with protecting the big monster called our education system that costs us $1.3 billion every single year. Our education system is the worst in the nation. We're number one on spending. We are dead last for the quality of education. Time to move us into the 21st century. My child's school uses Chromebooks for their education. This is how they have been getting it since day one. All their lessons, everything that they're supposed to be doing is on that Chromebook. They do all of their lessons on that. They do all of their testing on all that. It all gets turned into a centralized system that they just upload, and the teachers go online and correct them. If my child ever has an issue, she already gets onto Echo and communicates directly with her teacher. Doesn't happen very often. I just happen to be one of those blessed parents that has a child that, does very well in school. But if you have a child that's not as lucky as I am and, needs that extra help, damn it, these tools have been here forever. Our school system just refuses to use it. Why? Because it doesn't justify why they need $1.3 billion to function every single year. The money that they're using, again, they emphasized it over and over and over again. It had nothing to do with education. It had to do with free meals. It had to do with mental health. It had to do with keeping their government employees well paid. They're talking about right now, we're not laying anybody off. We're just finding new ways to utilize them. We have bus drivers that are now coming in and helping us keep up on some of the deferred maintenance. We have teachers and student facilities that are so excited to open back up again because of all these things that we were able to accomplish and will accomplish while the schools are closed down. Again, Chromebooks. They can be assigned their own telephone number. A Chromebook will cost less per month per student to give them a Chromebook to take home and do their lessons from than actually having them in class. One student equals 100 Chromebooks of class time being paid out there. No longer having to need to have cafeteria workers, no longer needing janitors, no longer needing bus drivers. All of these things are eliminated. No longer needing 503 different schools out there. Why are we wasting so much money to provide the worst education in the nation? This virus has given us the ability right now to be able to completely revamp Alaska's education system and bring it into the 21st century. Time to get everybody put onto the Chromebooks. Let's get our internet providers, our phone providers out there, the ones that are giving all the services, to swing the school district a beautiful, financially equitable deal for them and us, and get telephone numbers assigned to all of these Chromebooks and get them distributed to all of our students and start having them all learn from home. The only time that you would need to be able to utilize an actual school is if there is specific school things that need to be taken care of. Again, they could eliminate anywhere between 600 to 700 million by the numbers that I've been able to crunch. I have looked at eliminating the school food program that they are currently doing out there. It is just nothing but a big waste of money. You don't even have to be qualified. You don't even have to be living in poverty. Your parents could be making a couple $100,000 a year, and they'll still give you your lunch for free. Right now, they're using our busing system and driving door to door to deliver free meals during this crisis. Now, God bless, thank you, I do appreciate it. Most of us parents are now without jobs. You know, we've been fired, we're not working. Unlike these school bus drivers and superintendents and everybody that works for the school system, that $1.3 billion that they get every year, they are making sure to spend every penny of that money right now. They made it perfectly clear during the last 2 hours that they plan on spending every penny of that $1.3 billion that they got. They are not going to eliminate a single job. They don't care if those people are sitting at home twiddling their thumbs, picking the crud out of underneath their toenails. They're going to get a full wage. While you who work at a restaurant, you just got fired because you no longer have any business there. Your employer can't keep you working. Coffee stands are telling employees, sorry, we can't have you work anymore. We're cutting down the shifts. Instead of having 2 or 3 people that we would have had during this time, we can only afford to have 1 person because the people driving through are just not there. There's not enough people in Alaska that are earning an income right now to pay wages to come in and be able to buy coffee so that I can pay you your wages so that you have a job. This is an economical effect that is hitting our nation wide through all 50 states. And their biggest concern there is not providing a quality education, but how many welfare items that they provide to the communities that will be cut if they were to bring our education system into the 21st century, embrace the technologies that are out there, high-speed internet, use the Chromebooks. Again, my kids' entire school is 100% been using them since day one. All of their lessons, all of their books, all of their tests is all done by computer. There is no need to be paying for these overglorified, archaic school systems that we have out there. Don't forget to share this. I know it was a long, very boring, very dry meeting that they had here. I could tell just by the amount of shares that this video got and how many people actually liked it. It's amazing. Nobody really seems to care about the education system until it comes time to pay for it. Then it seems everybody seems to care at that point about it. Again, you guys all have a great day. Don't forget to share. Facebook squeals on you if you don't share. Don't forget to like. If you like what you're seeing and you want to see more of it, don't forget to donate. Doing this stuff costs money, and I am going broke rapidly trying to get it out to you. Have a great day.